Hello friends, today's date is 18 May 2022 and our today's topic is check and uncheck exception. Uh, these are the two types of the exception. Exception is the unwanted situation that will occur in our program, and to handle this we have to use the exception handling. And there are the two types of the exception, that is the check and the uncheck exception. Uh, an exception is an unwanted or unexpected event which occur during the execution of our program, that is the runtime, that disrupt the normal flow of our program or the instruction. In Java there are the two types of the exception. First is the check and second one was the uncheck exception. And these classes are mainly belonging from the parent class, that is the throwable, and the throwable class has the two types, that is the exception and the errors. The exception has the two types, that is the check exception and the uncheck exception. And check exceptions are the exception that are checked during the compile time, and the uncheck exception are the exception that are not checked at the compile time. The errors are the two types, that is the virtual machine error and the assertion error. First of all, we see what is the check exception. These are the exceptions that are checked at the compile time. If the code within a method throws an check exception, then the method either handle the exception or it must specify the exception using the throws keyword. For example, consider the example Java program that opens the file at the location c test.a.txt and prints the first three lines of it. The program doesn't compile because the function main uses the file reader, and the file reader throws a check exception, file not found exception. It also uses the read line and the close method, and these methods are throw check exceptions, that is the IO exception. Now we can see the try catch. You can simply wrap the Java code which throws the check exceptions within the try and the catch block. This allows you to process the deal with the exceptions. With this approach, it's very easy to swallow the exceptions, and they carry on, nothing happen later in the code. When what the method was doing is required, you may find yourself with our friend, that is the null pointer exception. We have not caught the exception and proceed the error in a meaningful way by adding the code to the catch block. The code sequence carries a crisis awarded. Now we can see the throws. We can use the throws to throw the check exceptions up to stack calling method to handle. This is the file input stream. Has just done. This looks feel great. To messy exception code we are writing, and we no longer need to handle this exception as someone else deal with it. The calling method needs something which maybe throw again. As with the try catch, be wary of always throwing, as you need to think should be handling the error, and what piece of the code is best placed to handle correctly. Now we can see the uncheck exception. These are the exceptions that are not checked at the compile time, but these are checked at the runtime. In C++, all exceptions are unchecked, so it is need to force the compiler to either handle or specify the exception. It is to the programmer to be civilized and specify or catch the exceptions in the Java exception under error and the runtime exception classes are unchecked exceptions. Everything else under the throwable check. Consider the example of the Java. It compiles fine but throws the arithmetic exceptions when the compiler allows it to compile, because the arithmetic exception is unchecked exception. The most common Java uncheck exception is good. That is the null pointer exception, which is when you are trying to access the variable or the object is doesn't exist. The difference between a check and the uncheck exception is that a check exception is caught at the compile time, whereas the uh, runtime or the unchecked exception is as it states at runtime. A check exception must be handled either by rethrowing with a try catch block or runtime isn't required to be handled. An unchecked exception is a programming error and fatal, whereas the check exceptions is an exceptions conditions within our code logic and can be recovered or retrieved from. So this is all about our today's topic. Thank you.